Hey folks, welcome to day 4 of SigNoz launch week. Today we are launching some great features around trace analytics, and we have with us Ekansh from our engineering team who will take us through. This has been something which we have seen a lot of demand for customers and users. And yeah, Ekansh, welcome to the live stream, and would love to hear from you what prompted us to start building this feature and take us through a demo.
Sure, Pranay. Thanks for having me. So currently we have all the filtering on all spans, and we have the trace view where we get deeper insights into the whole trace, such as the root span duration and the service name, and if we want to have any problem like analytics based on attributes on the trace, we can figure it out. But we have had many requests that we should build something which we can do for span filtering. In span filtering, I mean if we want to talk about only filtering or narrowing down the scope for root spans or just the entry point spans in a trace. And today we are launching span filtering in the Trace Explorer stack.
Yeah, might be good to understand more deeply what do you mean by root span, what do you mean by entry point span, and how people can use it. Like, why is it relevant?
Sure, Pranay. So first we will start with root spans. We will talk about root spans. So let's just say that we have a very large trace. Any trace, there is an endpoint, a payment service or something. Someone hits the endpoint and it goes to multiple services. So the root span would be the first span of a particular trace. So if let's just say slash payment service is the first point of contact in a trace, that would be called a root span. Root span in a synchronous system, we can say the root span gives us a lot of data about the whole trace. We can say the root span duration is also the trace duration in a synchronous system. And in a root span can also be defined as a span where there is no parent span attached to that particular span, and there is only one particular root span in the whole trace. So that's about root span. Coming to the entry point spans. So whenever there are multiple services attached to a trace, so let's just say that we are currently working in a microservices architecture. So every different service is a new microservice which is being handled by some other team probably. So coming back to the example of the payment service, let's just say we go to the some kind of user service, which is the entry of the trace. Then we go to some kind of ad service and then checkout service and probably the cart service and then the payment service or something like this. So all the entries into these particular services are called the entry point span. So let's say
It might
from
be good to show in like the product what exactly is root span, what exactly is entry point span. Would make it
Sure.
clearer for our viewers.
So let me just open a particular trace. Screen sharing. Okay. Let me just start with and for this equals to add four. So in any of these traces, so here we can see the load generator service or the span is our root span. So it has no parent span and it is only one in the whole particular trace. It goes to two other entry point spans, which is the front end proxy. From the front end proxy in the flame graph also we can see what are the different entry point spans where all the service names are changing from service A to service B. From load generator, it goes to front end proxy. It might go to front end and then add service. It might have different functions where the span is traveling to. So let's just say it goes from ingress to router front end egress. And from there, it goes to front end. So here the service name is changing. Whenever the service name is changing, it is called as a service entry span. So let's just say if in a very technical point of term, if there are two spans and in both the spans, like if span B is a child of span A, but span B's service name is not equal to span A's service name, then span B would be your entry point span. It is going into a new service. So from front end, it is calling another span. From there, it goes to another span. From there, it goes to some other span, and then it goes to this add service. So because the service name is changing here in 3 and 4, we can see that add service is a new entry point span.
Got it.
So here in the flame graph, we can see all the entry point spans which are going into the whole trace.
You mean the services for the entry point span, right? Like these
Yeah,
names are the
the
service.
service names for the entry point spans. Yes.
And what's a root span here?
So the root span is the first span in the whole trace. It would be the load generator. And you can see in a synchronous system, the root span duration is the summation of the total trace duration of the whole trace.
Got it. And this may not be true for a sync system because one job can get started after like the first span has been added or something.
Yeah. So for async systems, we can see in our messaging queues also that let's talk about Kafka or something. If it goes to some kind of messaging queue, the span might live for a longer time, and that duration is not calculated in the total span total trace duration.
Got it. So is it fair to say that all root spans are also entry point spans?
Although yes, but for the ease of simplicity here, we are considering root spans and entry point spans as different terms altogether.
Okay. So in SigNoz, like the current version of the product, the root spans are not considered as entry point spans. Got it.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. So show us the demo. Like, how can people use it? What does this look like?
So it is a fairly intuitive feature that we have built. Coming from a normal, like going to the SigNoz UI, it is pretty easy to navigate. Go to SigNoz, where we can go to traces. The list view is the default view, which is open for the trace view. Here we have all the spans, and we can do the span filtering on all spans because nothing is mentioned on the where clause. And we have a very intuitive dropdown which shows all spans, root spans, and entry point spans. So this is persistent across the list view and the traces view. So in the traces view, we show the trace view is ordered by the longest running root span. So it is equal to, in a sync system, it is equal to the longest running trace. So it is also true there. But currently we are going to talk about list view and we will move towards the trace view. So here, let's just see that we are filtering on the all spans. So any search that I do will be searched on every span that is there in the last 1 day according to the timestamp. So let's just say that we are going to filter on something like a service name is equals to add service. Very famous example right now. So we can see here, whatever we do it on all spans. We get the data based on how many number of column like rows we need, and we can add whatever columns we want to add here, and everything is generated for all spans. In the add service, all the spans for add service will be given in this particular view. Yeah, so let's just go through filtering based on root spans. So we are going to go to this dropdown, which is very intuitive dropdown, where we have root spans and entry point spans. When we click to root spans, in the where clause it shows is root is equals to true. Let's just put any service name here. So service dot name is equals to, as we earlier have gone through add service, we will check for add service only. So add service, and we see that we do not have any results, which does not mean that service name is equal to add service is not present. It just means that any add service is not a root span. So whenever we go to the whole flame graph, we will not see add service being the root span of any trace. When we remove the is root is equals to true and go to entry point spans, then we get all the spans. And if we click into this, we will see that add service is an entry point span to a load generator service, which is the root span here. It directly goes to the add service entry point span in the flame graph as well. and we can put in other attribute search and see all the search in the trace analytics view and trace view. Going back, if let's just go and search for a root span now. So earlier we figured out that the add service is not a root span, so we are going to cross that out, and we are going to cross the is entry point is equals to true as well. As soon as we cross out both the things, all spans is automatically added here. Let's go to the root span. We have the front end proxy service and front end web service. We had seen that earlier as well, but we are going to put another thing, which is the service dot name is equals to load generator, and we are going to run this. Now we get a lot of spans for load generator. What this signifies is that the load generator service is a root span, and we can go here and check that and check into the flame graph. So we say that the load generator is the first span, so it automatically qualifies for the root span of the particular trace.
Got it.
Coming back to the list, yeah.
You're saying also traces in traces view, the same, like the same filtering apply here?
Yeah, so in the traces view as well, if we go to the traces view, it takes some time, but we see the load generator service, and it is ordered by the longest running traces. So here the load generator service, when carried out with is root is equals to true, shows a lot of duration here, and it goes down and down. So when we go to trace analytics, we see that it is taking 2.2 minutes. Let's go back here.
If you go to traces page and then just put its entry point span.
Yeah, we can do that. When we do that, it shows entry point spans in the particular traces. Yeah. So we have the producer service for producer service.
There are some services which has multiple entry point spans. That means it has multiple services.
Yeah. So let's just say add service here. What happens here is it will show the root service name only, and it will show the root operation name, but it will, whenever we go to the trace ID, we will see that add service is present in this particular trace where the root service name is load generator.
Got it. If you do group by and remove a service name and just group by service name, what it will show?
Service.
So it should really show all services.
But always it will show the root service name.
Okay. So
because
in this view, root service name doesn't make sense. If we go to time series view or like table, let's go to table view.
In the table view, we have all these. So we have card service, currency service.
All these services have a entry point span.
Yeah, these all are entry point spans.
Got it. Cool. So how can people use this feature? So this idea of root point spans, like where does it apply? Like in for a customer or for a user, how do they use it?
Yeah, so very good question, Bhavin. So let's just say that we are having multiple services. So earlier we had a discussion that we have probably an ad service, then a checkout service or a cart service, then something like a payment service, and these all are entry point spans, except the first span, which is the root span. So when would I like to filter on an entry point span? We would like to filter on an entry point span whenever I want to check if any of the particular service is not behaving correctly. It is taking longer than expected time. So let's just say that the payment service or the payment endpoint is behaving incorrectly or taking a lot of time or showing a lot of errors. Then we would like to check the payment service endpoint, because it might be handled by a different team. It might have different SLOs and it might have signed different SLA agreements with other service team owners. We can also put alerts on that particular endpoint, which we know that it is a high frequency endpoint. So these all drop downs are limiting the scope of your search space. It will it can help you reduce time in your detection or resolving. So reducing the MTTD and MTTR, and it can effectively reduce cost of resolving a problem.
Got it. Got it. So basically, this would help you sort of narrow down more quickly to more interesting spans, because generally root spans are more interesting, entry point spans are more interesting. So you can find the important traces you want to look into, and then if you want to dive deeper, you can always sort of go to that trace and see the more detailed spans, right?
Yeah. So the thing about all spans is, and we still give all spans, but the thing about all spans is that it will only give us the details of that particular span. We would probably want details about which service it is coming from or which service it is entered into, and we want the details of that particular entry point span or that particular root span, and this helps us navigate and narrows down the scope of that particular thing.
Cool. Yeah, I think this seems pretty interesting, and I'm sure this would be very useful for our users and community. I think we have already received many such requests, and that's one of the reasons why we are building this. How does it compare to I'm guessing if a system is based on blob storage, this should be much tougher to do, right? Because it seems like you are doing some sort of aggregation, which should only be possible for data stores like ours, which is like common data stores.
Yeah. So, Pranay, what happens in a blob storage is that everything is stored in first of all partition, and secondly, it is in a very compressed manner. So the querying of that particular format is very difficult in a depth first search format. So we are essentially doing a depth first search in an finding out the service entry span or a root span of a trace, and that is not a very performant thing in a blob storage kind of a system. So any query layer built on that is obviously working on that, but it is our storage has a better performance if we are comparing to them.
Got it. Yeah, I think this sounds very interesting, and thanks for diving this. So sounds pretty cool. Anything you want to say to our viewers and the community?
Yeah, sure. So addressing everyone, I would like to say that we have launched this feature, and we would like everyone to try it. It is available in all our regions, and we would like to give us more feedback and more things to check into. And if you find anything, let us know. If you like the product, let us know. If you want us to build any more such features, please do reach out. Please do reach out to our Slack community or our GitHub community, and talk to us about it.
What are you building next here? What are in the roadmap for trace analytics? Because I'm seeing the trace product is getting much and more powerful. So curious, what are the next steps here?
Yeah, so the next steps into our trace product would be deeper relations between particular traces, particular spans. We would like to call it relational fields. It will give us more deeper relationships into particular parent-child relationships, probably root into child relationships, all these relationships. That is coming next in the next launch week. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, pretty exciting, and looking forward to what we build next. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, man.